Imagine a war not fought on land, sea, or air, but in the silent, unforgiving vacuum of space. A conflict where the first shots aren't bullets, but invisible beams of light and sophisticated cyber attacks. This isn't science fiction. This is the potential reality of a future conflict. And the recent tensions over Iran give us a chilling preview of what the first week of a space war could look like. Let's set the stage. The year is hypothetical, but the technology is very real. Tensions between the United States and Iran have reached a breaking point. Before any troops move or missiles fly, the first battle begins hundreds of kilometers above the Earth. The objective? To blind the enemy. Day 1. The primary targets are Iran's satellites. Now, Iran doesn't have a massive constellation like the U.S. Space Force, but it has key assets. The Noor 3, for example, is an imaging satellite. It's their eye in the sky, providing crucial intelligence on troop movements and strategic locations. The first move wouldn't be a spectacular explosion. Forget what you've seen in the movies. Instead, U.S. Cyber Command would likely launch a sophisticated cyber attack, aiming to hijack the satellite's control system. They could send it a command to simply turn off its camera, point it into deep space, or even use its own thrusters to deorbit it, causing it to burn up harmlessly in the atmosphere. No debris, no international incident over a kinetic kill, just a quiet digital takedown. Simultaneously, another form of attack is underway: electronic warfare. Powerful ground-based jammers, perhaps deployed on ships in the Persian Gulf or even from Allied territory, would target the frequencies Iran's satellites use to communicate with their ground stations. The satellite itself might be perfectly healthy, but if it can't send or receive signals, it's effectively a useless piece of metal. It's like having a perfect phone with no service. You can't make calls, you can't get data. The satellite is isolated, floating in a sea of static. Day 2 and 3 are about escalation and denial. Iran, realizing its primary eyes are now blind, would scramble to find alternatives. They might try to buy access to commercial satellite imagery from other countries or companies. This is where the economic and diplomatic battlefield opens up. The U.S. would exert immense pressure on these commercial providers, like Maxar or Planet Labs, to deny service to Iran, citing national security concerns. It becomes a game of cat and mouse in the corporate world, fought in boardrooms and through diplomatic channels. Meanwhile, the U.S. military is heavily reliant on its own space assets. Think GPS for navigation, missile guidance, and troop coordination. Satellites like the Space-Based Infrared System, or SBIRS, are watching for the heat signature of any potential missile launches from Iran. Iran knows this. They don't have the capability to shoot down a high-tech U.S. military satellite, but they can try to disrupt it. This is where things get interesting. Iran has demonstrated dazzling capabilities. They can use ground-based lasers to shine a bright light at a U.S. imaging satellite as it passes overhead. This doesn't destroy the satellite, but it temporarily blinds its sensitive optical sensors, like shining a flashlight directly into a camera. These moments of blindness, even if they only last for a few minutes per orbit, create critical gaps in U.S. intelligence. A lot can happen in a few minutes. Troops can move, equipment can be hidden. It's a tactical harassment campaign designed to sow doubt and uncertainty. By day 4, the focus shifts to a new domain, low Earth orbit or LEO. This is the crowded highway of space, home to thousands of satellites, including SpaceX's Starlink constellation. While Starlink is a commercial enterprise, its military applications are undeniable. It provides high-speed, reliable internet communication to forces on the ground, a massive advantage. Iran, possibly with help from allies like Russia or China, would try to disrupt this network. We're not talking about taking down all 6,000 satellites. That's impossible. But they could focus their electronic warfare efforts on jamming the user terminals on the ground in the specific area of conflict. If you can't talk to the satellites, the network is useless for you. This also brings up the terrifying threat of space debris. If one side decided to use a kinetic anti-satellite, or a SAT, Weapon basically, a missile that physically destroys a satellite, the resulting cloud of shrapnel would be catastrophic. Traveling at thousands of miles per hour, even a tiny paint fleck can hit with the force of a grenade. A debris cloud in Leo could render entire orbital planes unusable for decades. Not just for the US and Iran, but for everyone. It's the space equivalent of salting the Earth, a mutually assured destruction scenario that most experts believe all sides would want to avoid. But in the fog of war, desperate measures can be taken. Day 5 and 6 would see the battle for information intensify. Both sides would be engaged in a massive propaganda war. The U.S. would release high-resolution satellite photos of alleged Iranian military buildups, trying to justify its actions to the world. Iran, in turn, would claim its systems were still operational and that U.S. aggression was failing. They might even use deepfakes or manipulated data to create a false narrative. The struggle to control the truth becomes just as important as controlling the satellites themselves. At this point, the global community would be in a panic. Organizations like the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs would be calling for emergency sessions. The threat of cascading debris and the disruption to global services we all rely on, from weather forecasting to financial transactions and GPS navigation in our cars, will be a worldwide crisis. The war in space would not stay in space. Its effects would be felt by everyone on Earth. Finally, Day 7. A week into the conflict, a new unstable equilibrium would be reached. The U.S. would likely have established a degree of space superiority, having degraded Iran's primary assets. But it would be a fragile dominance. They would be constantly fighting off cyber intrusions, laser dazzling, and GPS jamming. The cost of maintaining this control would be enormous, requiring constant vigilance from the Space Force. Iran, though partially blinded, would have adapted. They would be using shorter-range drones, human intelligence, and whatever limited commercial imagery they could get their hands on. They would have proven that even a less advanced power can still be a thorn in the side of a space superpower. What does this all mean? The first week of a space war wouldn't be a sci-fi blockbuster. It would be a quiet, invisible, and incredibly complex chess match played out in orbit and cyberspace. It's a war of sensors, signals, and software. The goal isn't just to destroy, but to deny, degrade, and deceive. The events over Iran are a critical wake-up call. They show that the lines between terrestrial conflict and space conflict have been erased. The battle for the high ground is no longer about hills and mountains. It's about the orbits that encircle our planet. And the first shots of the next major war will almost certainly be fired there. Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the future of technology and warfare. Let us know in the comments what you think the biggest risks of a space conflict are. Stay curious. Have you ever wondered what a war in space would look like? No, not Star Wars with lasers and explosions, but a real conflict between nations high above our heads. Well, it might have already started. On April 18th, 2024, something unprecedented happened. A Russian direct-ascent anti-satellite missile, known as Noodle, reportedly struck and destroyed a Ukrainian satellite. This wasn't just a test. This was allegedly the first time in history a satellite was shot down during an active war. For years, we've heard about countries developing space weapons. The United States, China, and Russia have all demonstrated the ability to destroy their own satellites in tests. These tests were controversial, creating massive fields of dangerous space debris that threaten everything in orbit, including the International Space Station. But destroying another country's satellite during a conflict? That crosses a line nobody had dared to cross before. This event opens a Pandora's box of questions. What does this mean for the future of warfare? Satellites are the backbone of modern military operations, controlling everything from navigation and communication to intelligence gathering. Taking them out could cripple an army's ability to fight effectively. Is this the start of a new arms race in space? How will other nations respond? The world is watching closely because the quiet, vast expanse of space just became a very real battlefield. What do you think will happen next? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more updates on this developing story.